82?
86.5.
86.5?
59.
59?
Yeah.
Oh, just at the edge. But do you know why? Do you look at it and go?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Why are you guys about?
64.
64. So you've got some way to go.
77.
77. So some good ones, some less good, but entirely recoverable. Now you know the system. So that's how it goes. Right, in this assignment, which is entirely individual, you've got 5 sides of paper to cover, which is a very small piece of real estate. So it's not a word count, it's a number of sheets that you're going to do that in. So, pass that around and tick in.
Is this the 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
What does your watch say?
No, these days.
Oh right, it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, I've just been outside for ages.
Okay, come on in. So, we've got 3 parts to answer. The first part is actually the most complex. It's the one with a lot of thinking in. So, we have to produce a target market report which specifies the main audience for our product. Okay? So, who are we going to sell to? That's really what we're asking. Who are we going to sell to? Are you filming?
Going, sir.
I'll show you if you want.
It's too close.
Too close. I'm too fast. So, the first thing we need to do in that is actually break it down into 2 jobs. So the first part of the job is actually identify some approaches to segmentation. The second part of the job is, using those approaches, identify some segments. So you have to do job 1 in order to do job 2. Okay, so that's the first part of what you have to do. Now, segmentation approaches, we know that I've banned any demographic approach. So I do not want you to use any demographic segmentation approach. Don't come up with a fancy reason to do it, because I'll still fail you. Yeah? So don't do it. That's that easy. Clear instructions? Great. So, what approaches could you use? Well, there are families of approaches. So, behavioural segmentation approaches is a family of behavioural segmentation approaches. Psychographic segmentation approaches is a family of segmentation approaches. What I want you to do is identify some of those approaches from one or more of the families of approaches. So you can have psychographic approaches such as interests in something, or people's values, or people's religious beliefs, or people's lifestyles, or people's sexual orientation, and so on. Interests, attitudes, lifestyles, and so on. So have a look up about what are the different approaches to psychographic segmentation. Or you could choose some behavioural approaches. So, for example, segmenting people on the basis of their search engine behaviour. The words they put into a search engine is a segmentation approach. Segmenting someone on which sites they go on. Segmenting people based on where they get to in an online shopping transaction. They're all different behaviours. Behaviours are things we can observe, which allows us to target them. Psychographics are things that we can assume or ask about. So someone's interests, we can ask people what their interests are. We know that people are interested in things. We know that people have religions. We know that people have sexual orientations. We know that people have lifestyles. We can target those particular segments. So, you have to identify some segmentation approaches. So let's have a look at the process of doing that. Some segmentation approaches. Let's identify them. So I would like to identify a number of approaches. So let's imagine that you say we could target people based on the behaviour of search engine use. /terms. So we could target what people are typing into a search engine. We could target the behaviour of visiting specific websites. Or we could target the psychographic elements, sexual orientation. And so on. And there are other approaches and families of approaches. So another family of segmentation approaches is the needs base for product purchase. You have to look up the different approaches and families of approaches and propose some. So you've already got in your mind who you think your customers are. So now I want you to rationalise, come up with an almost scientific way of identifying them. And you do that through a segmentation approach. So you've got to identify some approaches, okay? Now, when you've identified some approaches, and there are millions, so make the massive list up and then go, I've only got 5 pages, so what are my most interesting ones? And keep one absolute duffer in. Okay? For each of these approaches, I want you to identify the advantages and the disadvantages of each approach.
So when we're choosing the approach, when we come up with the approaches at this point, are they ones that you think will be good, or are some of them just...
Yeah, there are ones you think would be good.
Okay.
And you need to think of the advantages and disadvantages of each approach. There's a lovely table feeling about this. Yeah. Line, rows, columns, that sort of thing.
Hello.
When you've considered the relative merits of each approach, you then say, so we are going to use which ones, or which one? You're probably going to use more than one. In fact, I'm going to insist you do, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So you say, well, we're going to use that and that. So you choose them, the ones you're going to use. Okay? And what happens when you make a choice?
Justify.
Yeah, you're going to have to justify that choice. So explain why using that approach is justified. Ooh, tough on that one. Why would it be appropriate to choose search engine behaviour, the use of specific keyterms? Why would that be appropriate? And when you've made that choice and justified it, what else do you think you have to do? Yeah, highlight the issues and risks associated with your choice of approaches to segmentation. Okay, so that's the first part of B1, and you'll have made your choice. Take a photo, take a photo. I'm going to take a photo. No, I'm not. I've already got this photo. Maybe just 4 copies of the same photo. So that's thinking about the approaches to segmentation. When you've chosen, then you actually have to use the segmentation approach. And that's the second part of B1. All right? You done? Yeah, okay, so I can rub this off. So, you've identified the approaches. We know that you've got to be quite specific about the approaches. So now you've got to use them. And here's a great way of using them. So let's try to do the segments using our approaches. Let's say you chose 2 approaches. And let's imagine that we're selling sporting goods, right? You can imagine sporting stuff. We've got a shop